Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We're starting this morning's broadcast with the breaking news at Reagan National Airport, where the crash with a military Black Hawk helicopter colliding mid-air with an American Airlines jet. A massive search and rescue is now underway. This is a breaking story. We don't have all the information. Not a lot of information has been given. This was late, about 9 p.m. local time, so later last night. According to the Federal Aviation Administration, a PSA Airlines Bombardier regional jet collided in midair with a helicopter, a military Black Hawk helicopter, while on approach to runway 33 at Reagan National Airport around 9 p.m. local time. There is no immediate word on casualties, though there has been word that, unfortunately, and we're going to hear from President Trump and J.D. Vance here in just a moment, but first responders have recovered at least 19 bodies from the river, according to CBS. According to Emergency Medical Services Chief John Donnelly, it's a highly complex operation. The conditions out there are extremely rough for the responders. It's cold. They're dealing with relatively windy conditions. The water is dark, and it is murky. So again, we don't have a lot of information. We'll try to keep you updated throughout the broadcast as news unfolds. I know there's going to be a press conference a little bit later on being held by the mayor. 64 people were on the American Airlines regional jet coming from Wichita, Kansas. The air disaster appeared to be the worst in more than 15 years, according to NBC. We also heard from, President Trump on this, trying to get all of our paperwork together. But the desperate search is for survivors at this point, when the airline carrying over 60 passengers and 4 crew members, and with the military helicopter, 3 soldiers were traveling in what was a practice type run. Officials did not confirm the recovery of any passengers, but CBS is reporting at least 19 bodies have been recovered. American Airlines said, "Our concern is for the passengers and crew on board of the aircraft. We're in contact with authorities and assist with emergency response efforts." So there is your update. In that breaking news story, the Black Hawk, that's the word I was looking for, a training flight. We can confirm the aircraft involved in tonight's incident was an Army UH-60 helicopter from Bravo Company, 12th Aviation Battalion out of Davison Army Airfield, Fort Belvoir, during a training flight, an Army spokesperson has said. "We are working with local officials and will provide additional information once it becomes available." So this is a continuing story. One piece of information that we learned late last night is that U.S. figure skaters were aboard, the American Airlines flight that collided with the military helicopter. They released a statement saying, "U.S. figure skating can confirm that several members of our skating community were sadly aboard American Airlines Flight 5342, which collided with a helicopter yesterday evening in Washington. We are devastated by this unspeakable tragedy and hold the victims' families closely in our hearts. We will continue to monitor their situation and release more information as it becomes available." Donald Trump released a statement late last night when the news first broke, and then shared further statements later on. The first statement was, "I have been fully briefed on the terrible accident which took place at Reagan National Airport. May God bless their souls. Thank you for the incredible work being done by our first responders. I am monitoring the situation and provide more details as they arise." As I mentioned, I have a few other comments here. Where is it? He said later on in the night, this is again President Trump, "The airplane was on a perfect and routine line of approach to the airport. The helicopter was going straight at the airplane for an extended period of time. It is a clear night. The lights on the plane were blazing. Why didn't the helicopter go up or down or turn? Why didn't the control tower tell the helicopter what to do instead of asking if they saw the plane?" And that's because of the release of air traffic control audio of the incident. Trump continued, "This is a bad situation that looks like it should have been prevented. Not good. What a terrible night this has been. God bless you all." So President Trump, believing it could have been prevented, J.D. Vance, Vice President J.D. Vance, called for prayers for everyone involved in the mid-air collision. Please say a prayer for everyone involved in the mid-air collision near Reagan Airport this evening. We're monitoring the situation, but for now, let's hope for the best. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, who was just recently confirmed to the job, says that the department will provide all support that's necessary after the plane crash. For the Department of Transportation and FAA perspective, we are going to offer full support to those on the ground, to the mayor, but also to the NTSB, who is going to be conducting the investigation into the matter. We are going to provide all the support that is necessary. He said, I think for all of us, we want to extend our thoughts and prayers to those individuals who were impacted by the events tonight. Thank you to the first responders who are getting in very difficult situations and environments out there searching and attempting a rescue. So there is the update that we have so far this morning. We'll try to update throughout the program. And of course, our thoughts and prayers are with those on that flight, the 64 passengers and crew members who were aboard that plane. I'm sure we'll learn more throughout this program and throughout the day. Comment from a viewer. God bless the people on this aircraft. I'm keeping their families in my prayers. Thank you very much. On these aircrafts, excuse me, yes. Obviously the helicopter and the flight itself. The video is just heartbreaking if you've seen it. So that is the breaking news story from late last night, early this morning. If you had not found, again, Reagan National Airport crash, mid-air crash with a military Black Hawk helicopter colliding mid-air with American Airlines jet, the worst in many years. So that's how we start our broadcast this morning, again, with our thoughts and prayers going out to the families and those involved in that crash. We will try to keep you updated throughout the program. We have some comments from viewers after yesterday's program. We'll read those along with yours this morning. But one comment was, have been listening to President Trump after having signed the Lincoln-Riley Act into law. The man has charisma as well as possessing a logical mind. That's from a viewer late yesterday. Yes, yesterday, President Donald Trump signed the Lincoln-Riley Act into law. That's his first bill since returning to office. The law requires, as you are aware at this point, the Department of Homeland Security to detain illegals who have been arrested, charged, or convicted of burglary, theft, shoplifting, or larceny. Moments before signing the legislation, Trump noted that states also have the opportunity under the new law to, quote, sue the federal government for immediate injunctive relief if future administrations do not enforce the nation's immigration laws. The law, of course, is named to honor 22-year-old nursing student Laken Riley, who was viciously murdered by an illegal alien and a TDA gang member, Jose Antonio Abrera, on February 22, 2024 in Athens, Georgia. Trump said before the signing, from the time she was in first grade, Laken knew she wanted to spend her time caring for others. That's what she did. To her friends and classmates, she was a light of warmth and kindness in every single room. To her parents and family, she was everything in the world. They've had a miserable period of time. He continued, to Laken's family, we will keep Laken's memory alive in our hearts forever, everyone's hearts. With today's action, her name will also live forever in the laws of our country, and this is a very important law. Now, Riley's mother was at the signing event, Allison Phillips. She thanked personally Senator Katie Britt and Representative Mike Collins for helping lead the bill's passage through Congress. I believe I saw it was reported that John Fetterman was in attendance. He did support, as a Democrat, he was the first to support it. This is what Allison Phillips, again, Laken Riley's mother, said. We also want to thank President Trump for the promise he made to us. He said he would secure our borders and that he would never forget about Laken, and he hasn't. He's a man of his word. Trust that he will fight for the American people. Most importantly, I want to thank our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, because without his sacrifices, Laken's story would have ended on that horrific day that she was taken from us. But because of him, we can continue living knowing that we will see Laken again. So that was another sort of, for lack of a better word, breaking story yesterday. Donald Trump signing his first act into law since becoming President of the United States, and that was the Laken-Riley Act that received a lot of attention. We talked about it yesterday, where there was quite a few people that were critical of Democrats who switched their position on this bill when they saw perhaps what you'd call the writing on the wall with the November election, seeing that this was something they could get behind now that they're worried about 2 years running for re-election in Congress or whenever the senators, specific senators were up, seeing that this is the way the nation is going. We are going to talk a little bit later on in the program about President Trump's illegal immigration enforcement. There's been a lot of news on that. It is a very busy news day when it comes to the Trump administration. Yesterday was RFK Jr.'s first confirmation hearing. He goes again today to round two, if you want to call it that. There were quite a few takeaways from the confirmation hearing that we'll get to later on in the program. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think the chances are that RFK Jr. will be confirmed? How do you think the hearings went? There's been quite a mixed bag, and I have quite a few of them in this gigantic stack of paper. What did you think? Some saying he did horribly, some saying he did great, some saying that obviously big money and some of the politicians are out to get him. I think it was RFK Jr. himself who made the point, much like Trump has in the past, when he was a Democrat, before he became friendly with Donald Trump, Democrats loved him. Now they're attacking him, wanting to keep him out of Washington. So we'll talk about that later on as well. That's one of the big stories from yesterday, but obviously the biggest story, again, before we go to break, number one, that a military Black Hawk helicopter did collide midair with American Airlines jet. That was around 9 p.m. yesterday. There were 60 passengers and 4 crew members on board. We will try to keep you updated on that this morning because that is a fluid story. It is continuing, and I know there would be press conferences here soon. We'll try to bring you all that information. We're also going to talk a few New York State issues. I want you to remember that Assemblyman Phil Palmisano will be on the program tomorrow, so make sure you get your questions in. We're going to focus laser-like tomorrow on the EV school bus mandate and the energy policies coming out of Albany and Governor Hochul's office. Also, we'll be talking about the state of the state and the budget as well. Okay, let's take our first break. Just getting started here on Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
When you think Hesselson's. Hesselson's has the largest selection of work boots in the area. Composite and steel toe boots, Met Guard boots, soft toe boots, and hikers, duty and western boots all in one location. Hesselson's, Elmira Heights. Hesselson's has men's and ladies boots in all sizes and widths. Choose from the largest names in the industry. Danner, Carolina, Timberland Pro, Keene Utility, Thorogood, Area, and Georgia, to name just a few. Hesselson's has been locally owned and operated since 1955, so when you think local service and great selection, think Hesselson's. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Trust your smile to Dr. Hench's at either Watkins Glen, Elmira, Horseheads, or Elkland Family Dentistry. All 4 locations provide cutting-edge technology to make sure your visit is comfortable and stress-free. Dr. Hench's offers treatment in all areas of dentistry, including same-day crowns, implants, root canals, oral surgery, and treatment for all ages. For the best dental care in the region, trust Dr. Hench's and his staff at Watkins Glen, Horseheads, Elmira, and Elkland Family Dentistry. Call any one of his offices today or visit them online for more information.
Start the year off right with the New Year's New Ride sales event.
Here at Blaze Alexander Ford of Mansfield. Find affordable adventure with a new Ford Bronco and save up to $9,000 off MSRP.
Enjoy rates as low as 1.9% on 2024 Ford Expeditions and 2024 Ford F-150s.
Shop 24/7 at BlazeAlexanderFordofMansfield.com or stop and shop to save some green off Route 15 in Mansfield, where we're taking the deals the other guys won't.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning, bringing you the breaking news this morning, if you are just waking up, that the military Black Hawk helicopter did collide midair with American Airlines jet around 9 p.m. local time yesterday. And according to American Airlines, there were 60 passengers and 4 crew members on board of the CRJ-700 aircraft. Two comments that I did not mention earlier were from Kansas Governor Laura Kelly, who said, "I'm aware that an inbound from Wichita was involved in a crash at Reagan National Airport. I'm actively in contact with authorities. My thoughts go out to all those involved. I will share more information as it becomes available." And this is a breaking story. We don't have a lot of information. There's different numbers being thrown around of bodies recovered and the like, but no official word. Senator Roger Marshall from Kansas said, "My prayer is that God wraps his arms around each and every victim and that he continues to be with their families. There are no words that can make telling this story any easier. I ask the world to join me in praying for Kansas this evening, the first responders, rescue crews, and all those involved in this horrific accident. I've been in contact with local and national authorities asking for answers and will continue to demand more information on how this unfolded. This collision marks the first time there's been a crash involved in a U.S. commercial flight, since 2009. So we'll try to keep you updated on that. Yesterday, the news came that Senator Bob Menendez, Gold Bars was the nickname that he was given, sentenced to 11 years in prison in his corruption case. Did you see what he said, where he tried to suggest that it was a lawfare scenario, where he said Trump was right about politically charged prosecutions? But in a press release issued yesterday by the U.S. Attorney's Office, Southern District of New York, it was revealed that along with Menendez being sentenced to serve 11 years in prison, Wael Hannah and Fred Dibes had been sentenced to more than 8 years and 7 years in prison on charges related to bribery, foreign agent, and obstruction of justice offenses. Menendez said, "Welcome to the Southern District of New York, a wild west of political prosecutions. President Trump is right. This process is political and it's corrupted to the core. I hope President Trump cleans up the cesspool and restores the integrity to the system." Now, many are saying the reason that he promoted Trump, because he would not have been a promoter of Trump in the past, is looking for a potential pardon to relieve him of those 11 years in the corruption case, fishing for a pardon, if you will. As Menendez walked away, a reporter could be heard asking if he was going to ask for a pardon. But no answer was given. The numbers were staggering. In January, Menendez was hit with more allegations than originally thought. You had wristwatches valued between $10,000 and $24,000. The FBI conducted a search of his home and discovered $486,461 in cash and 13 gold bars. And the gold bars valued at around $150,000. That's where he got the nickname Gold Bars. This was not his first run with bribery charges. So Bob Menendez sentenced to 11 years in prison and is saying Trump is right as he panders for a pardon in the bribery scheme. Couple other, here's a comment from Ken. "Thank you for sending the video Seth Meyers played on his show. Now that your show has a national spotlight on it, I hope you don't forget about us. I hope you don't forget about us at home." Trust me, I know. Thank you, Ken. I'm glad you watched it. Yes, we learned that a clip from this program was played on the Late Night with Seth Meyers show. It wasn't, you would normally think perhaps there'd be some perhaps negative connotation or trying to go after news people. That's what they typically do on the late night shows. But no, it was just a standard clip of me talking about Greenland and Denmark, of all things. So thank you, Ken. No, there's no worry about forgetting us at home, though. I don't think I'm at that level. But it was pretty interesting to see, and it was really nice. It was a nice little surprise being featured on Seth Meyers' show. Not something I would ever thought I would ever say. But if you did not hear that, or you want to see the clip, for copyright reasons, I don't want to play it on the air. I didn't seek the legal venue to make sure that I could play that right I here on the air. So if you want to see it, the clip, please feel free to text me at that number on the bottom of your screen, and I will send along the Frankly Speaking appearance on Seth Meyers' late night show. Okay. Another step, and this is a topic that we've discussed so much about, and just to show you the news cycle with Trump, this story came out, I believe, after the program yesterday that Trump was going to do this. I actually had to search for it this morning. It was already out of the news cycle. It was already long gone because Trump had done so much. And then, of course, the tragic news of the military Black Hawk helicopter colliding midair with the American Airlines jet. That happening around 9 p.m. local time in Washington yesterday. But yesterday, Trump ordered U.S. schools to stop teaching what he views as critical race theory and other material dealing with race, sexuality, or they risk losing their federal money. This is just one of many stories that was breaking yesterday that, again, because there was so many breaking stories, kind of got pushed down. There was a separate plan as well announced calling, and this is very important because think of how often we've talked about this on the program, for aggressive action to fight anti-Semitism on college campuses, promising to prosecute offenders and revoke visas for international students found to be, quote, Hamas sympathizers. We called for this at the time of the worst anti-Semitic protests on college campuses where Jewish students were being intimidated, threatened, where you had the encampments, where you had the disruption, the chaos, the destruction of campus property. And who really got in trouble? It was the ones that enforced the laws against the students. Remember, at Columbia, the dean lost her job, and they pretended it was because of the anti-Semitism that had run amok on college campuses. But no, when you read between the lines and you read what faculty and staff were saying, it was because she had the audacity to call police on these rioters that were destroying campus property. But both plans were outlined in executive orders signed by Trump yesterday. The measures seek to fulfill some of the Republican president's core campaign promises around education. His order on K-12 schools declares that federal money cannot be used on the indoctrination of children, including radical gender ideology and critical race theory. It says civil rights laws barring discrimination based on sex and race would be used to enforce the order, calling critical race theory an inherently racist policy. He gave specific examples. We won't get through all of that because we do have a lot of news to get to this morning. But he did lay out some of the reasons why he wanted to enforce this. Trump also directs the education secretary to craft a strategy within 90 days to, quote, end indoctrination in K-12 education. Trump has appointed billionaire professional wrestling mogul Linda McMahon as his education chief, but her Senate confirmation hearing has not been scheduled. During his campaign, Trump said he would sign an order on day one to cut federal money for schools that push critical race theory or other inappropriate content. So that was one of the major focuses, but also the fight against anti-Semitism is so important because, as Van Jones said during the campaign, the Democrat Party has become marbled, was his term, with anti-Semitism, and we saw that, and some believe that's why still Harris didn't pick Josh Shapiro, the Pennsylvania governor. But Trump's plan to fight anti-Semitism would marshal all federal resources and bring immediate action from the Justice Department to investigate and punish offenders on U.S. campuses. It calls for the deportation of non-resident aliens who violate our laws, citing previous threats by Trump to revoke student visas for international students who attend pro-Palestinian protests. Trump's action promises to protect law and order, quell pro-Hamas vandalism and intimidation, and investigate and punish anti-Jewish racism in leftist, anti-American colleges and universities. That's a quote directly. Now, it drew swift backlash from civil rights group who said campus protests have mostly been peaceful and are protected by constitutional free speech rights. Now, it's interesting the times that they choose to suggest things are mostly peaceful. That's a very important word in that sentence, mostly. Edward Ahmad Mitchell, National Deputy Director for the Council of American Islamic Relations, said the action is discriminatory and wrongly characterizes protesters as pro-jihadist or pro-Hamas. Well, if you saw their signs, if you saw their garb, it very much was the case. Very interesting that it could end, or go after the visas of some of these students. And Alan Dershowitz, a Democrat, he was on Newsmax TV, a program called On the Record. And he said, I helped draft the original anti-Semitism order back during his first term, when he talked about universities having an obligation to treat anti-Semitism the way they treat other forms of racism and bigotry. And that had a big impact on college campuses. So I'm hoping this will have an equally big impact. I'm glad that the president and the administration are taking action against non-American citizens who are not entitled to be in this country. They're here as our guests, essentially with student visas, and they're abusing it because so many of these anti-Israel demonstrators are, at their core, anti-American demonstrations. Exactly. You have anti-Israel, anti-American, and anti-police, and that was shown time and time again during these quote-unquote mostly peaceful protests. But I'll continue with what Alan Dershowitz had to say. They hate Western values. They hate what America stands for. They hate what Israel stands for. And the other thing I'm hoping will happen is that the names of the people who participate in these pro-Hamas, anti-Semitic demonstrations will be published so that they will be held accountable so that employers will know who they're hiring. The First Amendment gives them the right to be bigots, but it gives us the right to know that they're bigots so that we can judge them in the marketplace of ideas. It's very important that all of this be done within the context of the First Amendment, and I'm hoping that the new procedures will be implemented by universities and other places consistent with free speech. But because of this and the quote-unquote the attack on DEI, former Georgia Democratic gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams said that Republicans and the Trump administration are, quote, making it safe to discriminate. While Donald Trump may be the avatar, he's not an outlier as long as the rest of the Republican Party forwards what is happening. Whether it's Stephen Miller at the podium or a U.S. Senator, they are all agreeing to the premise of Project 2025. Wow, still bringing that up. Stacey Abrams is interesting because if you recall, she still hasn't accepted the fact that she lost the gubernatorial race. But to push the exact ideas, who said it? Someone had a really good point that the Democrats were focused on Project 2025 when really they should have been focused on Agenda 47, which I believe is a term that Trump used for his campaign promises. And let's face it, if there's one thing we've learned in a week and a half, Trump is making good on his campaign promises. He is working at each and every single one that he promised on the campaign trail and doing it at a breakneck speed. Very impressive. But without reading her whole statement, she said that this is what they're saying. Republicans right now are helping make it safe for discrimination because of the focus on ending DEI initiatives, which has proven, and that's why so many businesses started getting rid of it, proven to create a more divided and more bigoted work environment. So that's Stacey Abrams. All right, we got other breaking news stories from yesterday. The biggest story, and our thoughts and prayers go with everybody involved. The military Black Hawk helicopter that collided midair with the American Airlines jet. If you are just waking up and just joining us, that is a breaking and fluid story. We'll try to get you as much information, but not a lot is known at this hour. But according to American Airlines, there were 60 passengers and 4 crew members on board of the aircraft. CBS reporting 19 bodies have been recovered, but that is still not official. That is just being, again, this is what always happens with a breaking story. Not misinformation by any means, but not always the most factual or accurate information because it is so fluid. So that's why we're going to try to take a step back. We'll keep highlighting it in case people are just joining us to make sure that they know what is going on. But we're going to try to wait until the facts are known. So there we go. We got quite a few comments coming in, I see. We'll get to those when we come back. I'm running late. Oof. It's that kind of morning. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Frankly Speaking, Roof Cam is brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs.
Discover a path to receiving an exceptional educational experience with all costs covered. That's our mission. Find your future at Milton Hershey School.
At John G. Ullman Associates, our clients come first. As a fiduciary, we build personalized plans rooted in our shared ethics and values.
And you've been doing this for 45 years?
Yes, our in-house team creates custom plans built for you and your family.
We like the idea of a relationship that lasts.
That's what we're all about, helping you and your family build and protect wealth for generations. John G. Ullman and Associates, here for everything your money touches.
It's a new year, and for millions of New Yorkers, that means more money in your pocket. For the second year in a row, the minimum wage in New York State has gone up. Both this year and next, the minimum wage is increasing 50 cents per hour. That means an additional $2,000 to spend on all the things you and your family need. Then, in 2027, the minimum wage will be tied to inflation, which means increases will match costs. New York's new minimum wage, putting money directly into the pockets of New Yorkers who need it most.
Fox website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Ran late in that last break, so we got another break coming up here in just a little bit, but I wanted to read some comments, and let me tell you, I could take a hint. We'll talk about the RFK Jr. hearing yesterday in just a few moments, okay? I do have a couple things we have to catch up on. But first off, Frank, after listening to the confirmation hearing yesterday, I have to say, if Elizabeth Warren is so concerned about RFK Jr.'s ethics, she should return the wages she received from Harvard. Great point. After getting hired about lying about her Indian heritage, she is the last person that should be preaching about ethics to anyone. Thank you, Ken. That's a great point. It's very much like when you have Richard Blumenthal, who lied about his service in Vietnam, lecturing people about lying. There's no self-awareness. But they know that story is not, or that part of her past, we'll say, is not going to be mentioned in a story about her back and forth with RFK Jr. Same with Richard Blumenthal. Yes, in conservative circles or maybe some more moderate conservative media outlets, it may come up, but even that would be very rare. So to your point, she knows that she can get away with it. But I agree with you. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Yesterday, I caught part of Elizabeth Warren's meltdown at RFK Jr.'s hearing. She seemed angry. Her high cheekbones were very distracting, and that is in reference to what she said about her lying about her Indian heritage, so that's why I'm glad that you quoted her. Were very distracting, but she did remind me of how great term limits would be. Very much so. I couldn't agree more. Comment from a different viewer. Well, it's Thursday, and I just found out that kids can all get a free lunch in the Corning School District. Well, it's free to parents, not taxpayers. Yes, there's no such thing as a free lunch, ironically. And we know that Governor Hochul is pushing that at the state level, wanting all school lunches to be paid for. And I think it was Assemblyman, former Congressman Joe Sempolinski, that had such a great point that, of course, we want young kids that are hungry to be fed. No one's arguing that. Not Republican, not Democrat. No one's arguing that. But there's a better way to do it than just blanket pay for everyone's, because there's a lot of people that not only can afford the lunches and breakfast, they want to pay for them. So one of the things that Joe had suggested is kind of removing that stigma by making all kids use the same card to pay for their lunch. And no one knows if that card was paid for by their parents or if that card was paid for by taxpayers. And again, that may be one easier way, because instead of spending, and I can't remember what the final number was, but all that money for taxpayers when there's a lot of people that can afford to pay for their kids' school lunches. So I'm not surprised about that with Corning, if I'm being honest. But as you said, it's free to parents, but not free to the taxpayers. Thank you for that. Speaking of, I got to take a break. Okay. By the way, the White House says the funding freeze does remain in effect. There was a report yesterday, I guess it was kind of a mess behind the scenes, that they said it was rescinded. A memo ordered the freeze had been issued by the Office of Management and Budget, and that there was a freeze. But no, there is a freeze on federal funding. That was not rescinded, is what I'm trying to say. The New York Times, the White House's new press office sent out an attack on what they call fake news, saying hoax. A score of fake news outlets, including Axios, CNN, The Washington Post, The New York Times, and many others, claimed President Trump's directive to temporarily pause certain federal spending was rescinded. But the fact of the matter is, no such thing took place. Instead, a memo from the Office of Management and Budget was rescinded in an effort to alleviate confusion. And Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt confirmed President Trump's order remains, quote, in full force and effect, and will be rigorously implemented as the administration works to root out waste, fraud, and abuse. All right, so that's another update. I do have one other. I'm going to get to a New York State issue. Just quickly, because of that comment from a viewer about the free lunch in the Corning school districts. One quick story, and then we are going to talk about RFK Jr.'s confirmation hearing, because I can tell by the comments coming in, that's what you want to talk about. So what did you think? It did get very heated. John Fetterman is signaling that he isn't as apt to maybe go for RFK Jr. It looks like, to me, a very tough road to hoe for RFK Jr. to get confirmed, but I would like to hear your thoughts on it, what you thought of yesterday's confirmation hearing. There is part two, if you will. Round two is probably a better way of putting it, that begins today. So we will talk about that when we come back, that and other topics, so stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Today's topic: increasing fuel costs continue to drive up inflation, making it harder to afford everything from food to home heating.
Here at Hustlesons, we know the only way to beat inflation is to fight inflation. So we're fighting back with zero interest financing and big cash rebates. Get a 4-person hot tub for your family for as little as $100 per month and pay zero interest. Or save up to $3,000 on a fabulous salt system hot tub. And of course, you will always get Hustlesons' unbelievable service. Don't let inflation fears kill your dreams. Fight back with Hustlesons. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hustlesons.
Are you ready for winter in New York State? Ready for thrills like this? Discoveries like this? Views like this? Are you ready to make memories? Plan the perfect trip or have an impromptu getaway. It's time to explore everything that makes New York easy to love. Discover more at iloveny.com.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly Speaking, live, 2 hours long, starting at 6 a.m. on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is history. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. If you are just joining us, the breaking story that a military Black Hawk helicopter has collided midair with an American Airlines jet around 9 o'clock yesterday. It is being reported by CBS News that 19 bodies have been discovered. The reports are that there were 60 passengers and 4 crew members on board. There is going to be a press conference a little bit later on. We'll try to keep you updated. But that ties in with a comment that we received from a viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, morning. That is so tragic what happened with 2 aircrafts colliding. But one fact, there is a shortage of air traffic controllers, and they pull long shifts. Maybe Trump needs to overhaul the air traffic control system. I think you'll hear a lot of discussion on that in the coming days. As President Trump said in a statement last night on Truth, that it looked preventable to him. So I'm sure there will be a focus, and rightfully so, on air traffic control systems and the lack of air traffic controllers, which has been a major issue for quite some time. At one point, it was reported that that was the most stressful job, that it was had the highest suicide rates at one point. I don't know if that changed. This was years ago, but I remember that being reported. But a real shortage on air traffic controllers. Now, I heard one of the experts on the news this morning say that he did not believe that was the reason for this. But we'll keep you updated. One quick thing, and that is a breaking story, so it is fluid. We'll try to get you as much of the information as we learn as the show unfolds. So we've been talking, viewers were talking about the free lunch at the Corning County Post School Districts. You may have heard, and I think it's been kind of universally praised, that Governor Hochul wants to ban cell phones. I shouldn't say universally praised, but a lot of people are supporting on both sides of the aisle the cell phone ban in schools because there are safe, effective ways to do it. We talked about it again with Joe Sempolinski a few weeks ago or a week ago. And whether you support it or not, I'm going to go under the assumption that you support the cell phone ban for just a moment. Shouldn't it just be done? Does it need to cost $13.5 million? Isn't this a prime example of what we're dealing with in New York State? That Governor Hochul wants to ban cell phones. Boom. What's the problem? Why does it cost? Why is it budgeted to cost $13.5 million? As the New York Post editorial board says, it is pathetic. Governor Hochul wants the state to spend $13.5 million to help schools implement a cell phone ban. What's more pathetic, city schools, and that's in New York City, city school chancellor Melissa Aviles Ramos calls the help inadequate, even though about half of Gotham's public schools already have bans in place. So this is, if this isn't a prime great example of one of the many problems that we're dealing with in New York State. We want to ban cell phones in schools. Okay, we'll hear both sides, and let's say at the end of the day, we ban it. Well, here's $13.5 million. Well, why? Why should it cost anything? And then in the city, they're saying, well, that's an inadequate amount. We need to spend more in this state. Why does it even have to cost a dime? Tell the kids that they have to keep their phones in their lockers or turned off in their book bags or left at home. When you catch a student breaking the rules, discipline accordingly. You don't need to buy fancy, pricey bags or establish a whole new bureaucracy in each school or whatever it is Aviles Ramos imagines she needs a ton of money for. You do need to enforce basic discipline and general order. Perhaps the chancellor would like to list the schools where that's now impossible and her plans for restoring them. And that's specifically in the city, but many of those same problems could be said by our rural schools, I'm sure, as well. No amount of cash will make the ban workable, or indeed the whole school. So 1.3, what's that? That's nothing. $13.5 million to implement the cell phone ban. Something as simple as that many people latched onto saying it was a good idea, and then at the end of the day, it's going to cost us $13.5 million. For what reason? I would love to know. Please explain to me how a cell phone ban in schools would cost anything. Oh, speaking of New York, as we talk about confirmation hearings, one quick update before we go to break. The Senate easily confirmed, and congratulations, to former Representative Lee Zeldin. He is now the new EPA Environmental Protection Agency Administrator. He earned bipartisan support. The 56-42 vote featured Democrat Senators Mark Kelly and Ruben Gallego of Arizona, as well as John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, giving their approval of Zeldin alongside all 53 Republicans in the upper chamber. Now, I'd love to know, it's just for pure politics, if a Democrat voted against him. Obviously, he has a great resume, a great background. He said that the EPA will now be focused on protecting our environment while also protecting our economy. Now, I hear the corning whistle. That means we have to take a break. But congratulations to Lee Zeldin, who was in the area, back in probably late October, mid-October for that Tri-County Republican dinner. And it's good to see. And, of course, we all know Lee Zeldin as former gubernatorial candidate for New York. So congratulations to Lee Zeldin. He will now be heading the EPA. All right, when we come back, we start our conversation, kind of, we've hinted at it, about the RFK Jr. confirmation hearing as day 2 begins. Today is the second day of what will probably be another heated hearing. I'm going to read your comments when we come back as well, so stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
At John G. Ullman & Associates, our clients come first. As a fiduciary, we build personalized plans rooted in our shared ethics and values.
And you've been doing this for 45 years?
Yes, our in-house team creates custom plans built for you and your family.
We like the idea of a relationship that lasts.
That's what we're all about, helping you and your family build and protect wealth for generations. John G. Ullman & Associates, here for everything your money touches.
It's a season of sharing.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
Sheldon and Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts.
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the battle of twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right. You were faking. Bazinga.
Young Sheldon.
Weeknights at 6:30 on Big Fox.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Hold on, I've got to staple something. Sorry about that. We are back with Frankly Speaking because I went to throw away the article that says that it's going to cost us $13.5 million to implement the cell phone ban in schools. And I said, I don't want to get rid of that article because I want to talk to Assemblyman Phil Palmisano about it tomorrow on the program, get his take on it. Yes, Phil will be on the show tomorrow. Here we go. Some comments from viewers, and keep them coming in. We're having a great conversation this morning because we are going to get to RFK right now after these comments. Maybe we could get Assemblyman Phil Palmisano to make a deal with Governor Hochul. We'll fully fund the lunch program for you get rid of the EV school bus mandate. Yeah. Hey, it's worth a shot. I think we all know the realities of how that conversation would go, but I like the idea. Thank you. Comment from a different viewer. Free school lunches means free breakfast too. And for the rich people who don't need it, it is ridiculous. Ms. Hochul is fishing for votes. Well, yes, it is very much fishing for votes because it's one of those heartwarming topics, right? Where who doesn't want kids to be fed? No one. No one. But to your point, it's not even just rich people, just people, middle class, people that can afford the breakfasts and lunch for their children, perhaps want to pay for the breakfasts and lunches for children that are being forced into this position where everybody gets a free lunch. And back to Assemblyman Sempolinski's point, just make it something as simple as everybody has a card that they pay for their lunches and breakfast with, and some of those cards have money on it from the taxpayer. Some of those cards have money from the parents. But yes, you're right. It's free breakfast and lunch and the cost for that program. There's a better way to implement this, but Governor Hochul knows she won't receive much pushback because of the optics of it. It's very tough, Republican or Democrat, to come out and say they're against it because people are going to say, you want the poor kids to go hungry. And that's not what anybody is saying. But that's politics 101, right? So you're right when you say she's fishing for votes. I agree. That's exactly what it is. Comment from a different viewer. You're right, Frank. Just make it a law. No cell phones in school. And if you bring one, you lose it. It'll be confiscated. Yeah, but as the New York Post piece said there, that would actually involve discipline by the education system, actually doing the tough work of disciplining children. So that's why that is not the case. It's simple. Why that would cost $13.5 million. And then in New York City, they're saying that's not enough. That's inadequate. To enforce a cell phone ban in the schools, it's just a prime example of how we're never going to get out of this hole in New York if we don't start changing things at the Albany level. If we don't start, this is what happens when it's one-party rule in Albany. Programs like this and costs like this. Okay. One viewer simply saying, Lord have mercy on New York. Yes. Thank you. Yes, please. Comment from a different viewer. Give RFK Jr. a chance. If he doesn't do his job, Trump will say, you're out of here. Oh, interesting point. Yeah, give him a shot. Yes, yesterday was the beginning of a two-parter of the confirmation hearings of RFK Jr. He will be back today in front of the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. On Wednesday, in front of the Senate Finance Committee, which will vote on Kennedy's confirmation. There were plenty of verbal fireworks, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit. A lot of kind of nasty comments being made. Wyden even asking, are you lying to Congress today when you say you are pro-vaccine, or did you lie on all those podcasts? Pushing back, Kennedy said the statements he made on that podcast have already repeatedly been debunked, and he vowed he would do nothing to prevent Americans from obtaining certain vaccines. Quote, I support the measles vaccine. I support the polio vaccine. I will do nothing as HHS secretary that makes it difficult or discourages people from taking anything. Then you had Democrat Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado accusing Kennedy of peddling half-truths and peddling false statements. So one Democrat Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, who has known Kennedy for decades, dating back to their law school days, and they were roommates at the University of Virginia. He told his, I would say, former friend, quote, frankly, you frighten me. Also, we had the heckling. This is an important point to make, and I know that it's been said in the past, but when there's these confirmation hearings or for instance, the State of the Union, and you have a heckler, you have someone in a costume or there's signs, that was planned by someone in office or their staff. None of that happens spontaneously. None of that is done without a lot of people knowing it is going to happen for safety reasons like that. So when they say, oh my goodness, a protest broke out or a heckling broke out, there were people sitting up there at that confirmation hearing that knew full well that was going to happen and at what time. I think that's a very important note. People always think that, how did someone sneak in there? There was no sneaking. Someone gave them a ticket. Someone knew exactly what they were doing. Protesters yelling, vaccines save lives, no RFK Jr. Ooh, that one doesn't rhyme. Where'd that one come from? We'll talk about this. Get your comments on it. I'd love to hear. We've got the takeaways from the clashes from two very different outlets, one being CNN, the other from the New York Post. Just kind of notable moments and takeaways. But let me take a break. I am running late. Stay with me. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox.
Isn't your wellness important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with the Hesselsen's Hot Tub. Hesselsen's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselsen's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselsen's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselsen's hot tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselsen's.
Harder makes it hard to keep your home looking like the work of art you've always envisioned it would be. Culligan softeners reduce hard water buildup and your cleaning time, transforming every drop, every splash, every rinse into the fine art of a long-lasting clean. With a Culligan water softener, revel in the breathtaking beauty of your home, just the way you've always pictured it. Culligan, water you love.
Something with a diamond in it.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name. Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon.
Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Share in the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud.
7 and 7:30 on Big Fox.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Yes, you can hear me shuffling papers around. We have so much to discuss as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. We've got a lot of comments from viewers. Let's go to those comments. Thank you to the viewer who sent in that information about the plane crash this morning. That is a breaking story. It is developing, and I'm trying to bring as much of the information as we know. No bodies have been, or excuse me, no survivors have been recovered. There is being reported 19 bodies have been found. In total, there were 60 passengers and 4 crew members on board. That is, if you haven't heard the story, the military Black Hawk helicopter colliding mid-air with an American Airlines jet. But to the viewer who sent in about the U.S. figure skaters, yes, some were involved. Several members were involved in that crash. The U.S. figure skating can confirm that several members of our skating community were sadly aboard American Airlines Flight 5342, which collided with a helicopter yesterday evening in Washington, D.C. That was an official statement that they released yesterday. So thank you for sending that along. Okay, some other comments from viewers. Guantanamo Bay is a great offshore holding point. I'm not jumping ahead to that yet, but we will talk about it. I keep promising we're going to talk about RFK Jr., and I get sidetracked. But we will talk about Guantanamo Bay. Trump will send up to 30,000 illegal immigrants to Guantanamo, saying it's a tough place to get out of. Comment from a different viewer. RFK Jr., he has said we have 60% fatter kids. So why the free lunch? Very nice way of trying to tie those two stories that we've been talking about this morning together. RFK Jr. clashed with Democrats. He said, how are we doing on time? Oh yeah, we got to wrap up hour number 1. But RFK Jr. really echoing what Donald Trump had said numerous times. He said, Democrats who used to be my friend until Donald Trump nominated him to be a part of his administration. And he asked both sides of the aisle to unite to make the U.S. healthier. My approach, where's the exact quote? Here we go. They shouldn't get redacted documents. Public health agencies should be transparent. If we want Americans to restore trust in the public health agencies, we need transparency. He continued before saying that his 2024 presidential campaign was about uniting Americans, Democrats, and Republicans. According to the former Democratic presidential candidate, there is no issue that should unite us more than this chronic health epidemic. And there is no such thing as a Republican child or a Democratic child. He then proceeded to point out explosions in cases of several medical and mental health conditions, including diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, neurological diseases, and depression. All these things that were related to the toxic environment. Why can't we just agree with each other to put differences about so many issues aside? Kennedy, who left the Democratic Party and continued his campaign as an independent before dropping out, proceeded to list reasons why he believes he is the best choice to lead. We're going to end this. I don't think anybody is going to be able to do this like I am because of my peculiar experience, because I've litigated against these agencies. When you litigate against them, you get a PhD in corporate capture and how to unravel it. I've written 6 books about these agencies. I know a lot about them, and I know how to fix it. And there's nobody who will fix it the way that I do because I'm not scared of vested interests. I don't care. I'm not here because I want a position or a job. I have a very good life, a happy family. This is something that I don't need. I want to do this because we're going to fix it. Then he finished by saying, all these Democrats are opposed to me for partisan issues. They used to be my friends, claiming that they once agreed with me on all the environmental issues I've been working on for my whole career. Now they're against me because anything that President Trump does, any decision he makes, has to be lampooned, derided, discredited, marginalized, and vilified. Very good point from Robert F. Kennedy Jr. We're going to talk about the takeaways from yesterday's hearing. Stay with us. We'll be right back with hour number 2, Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
I'm Marianne Kirk. I've lived here for 70 years, but I do fine right here in my house, and I want to be here as long as I can be. And I feel comfortable knowing that if something happened to me, someone would know because of the cameras that are installed in various spots in my home. That has been a wonderful gift to me to be able to have that security and that support from Full Circle America, and that's what it's all about.
I'm Nancy O'Dell. This is Crime Expose.
It's chilling, it's haunting.
We knew exactly who it was.
Blood stains on her shorts.
See you in September.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live with hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here in the Hesselson studio. The breaking story this morning, if you're just joining us, a military Black Hawk helicopter did collide midair with an American Airlines jet. As of right now, CBS is reporting 19 bodies have been discovered. There were 60 passengers and 4 crew members on board. We will keep you updated as that unfolds, but it is a breaking story. Okay. Some comments from viewers. Oh, thank you for the waves. Take the money to stop cell phone use in schools to put an armed guard at every school to stop the school shootings and with those officers enforce the cell phone use. Thank you very much. Okay, RFK Jr. clashed with Democrats over his past comments. The takeaways from CNN were the Kennedy's response to past conspiracy theories. When asked to respond to his previous statements that COVID-19 was a genetically engineered bioweapon that targets black and white people, but spared, I'm sorry if I mispronounce this, Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese people, he is quoted as saying, "I didn't say it was deliberately targeted. I just quoted an NIH published study." Pressed whether he said that Lyme disease is a highly likely military engineered bioweapon, Kennedy said, "I probably did say that." Then Bennett turned to his Republican colleagues after Kennedy's answer, "I want them to hear it." Kennedy denied that he had said that exposure to pesticide causes children to become transgender, but Bennett pushed back. "I have the record that I'll give to the chairman." So we don't have to go through every conspiracy theory. He tried to clear up his position on abortion. This is why I think RFK Jr. is in a tricky position. Democrats, though they liked his environmental work, they don't like his stance or his past statements on the vaccine and some other quote-unquote conspiracy theories that he pushed. Republicans have a real concern about his stance on abortion. So you're kind of in that awkward limbo area where both sides have major issues you have to overcome, and that's not necessarily a pleasant place to be if you really want to be confirmed. I would love to hear your thoughts. I mean, to the viewer's point that said just give him a shot, and if he doesn't do good, Trump will fire him. There's a point to be made there. But do you think he will be confirmed? I think it's getting to be quite an uphill battle just because of, like I said, not just his stances on vaccines and like that for Democrats, but also his stance on abortion or past stance on abortion for some Republicans. He sidestepped on key commitments. Kennedy refused to give clear answers about whether he would disavow his own financial interests if confirmed or purge HHS employees for political purposes. That's one of the reasons why he and Elizabeth Warren got into such a heated exchange. But to Ken's point, it's very tough to listen to Elizabeth Warren, who lied about her heritage to get a job at Harvard, talk about ethics and specifically in relationship to money. But that was one of the bigger takeaways. And also, there was some area where Democrats and Kennedy found ground. Sheldon Whitehouse used his dedicated time in the spotlight to give a speech rather than ask Kennedy questions. Despite the overall tense hearing, which included interruptions from protesters, again, always pre-planned, Democrats signaled they found some common ground when Kennedy outlined his views on the chronic disease epidemic and how he wants to implement a nutrition-oriented disease prevention plan. Even Bennett, who interrogated Kennedy, also concluded, Mr. Kennedy is right when it comes to the declining health in the United States and the poor food quality offered to children. No Democrats have said they will support Kennedy, but some have suggested they are open to it. Quote, I met with him, and that's part of an ongoing dialogue, said Democrat Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania. Senator Bernie Sanders has said that Kennedy is exactly correct about the food industry. So there was some common ground, but I would love to hear your thoughts. If you watched it, what you thought of it. Did get nasty, did get contentious at times. Do you believe he will be confirmed? Now, the key moments, according to the New York Post, one was Bernie Sanders. This was weird. Sanders said, you have started a group called the Children's Health Defense. They are selling what's called onesies. Now, you know what onesies are. It's the pajamas that are just one outfit, essentially. You know, one onesie. I don't know how else to describe it. Well, one of them is titled Unvaxxed Unafraid. Next one, and they're sold for $26 a piece, by the way. Next one is No Vax, No Problem. Your organization is making money selling a product which casts fundamental doubt on the usefulness of vaccines. Isn't it interesting that even in talking about something as odd as onesies, Bernie Sanders still has to take a dig at the cost of it, not wanting anybody to ever make any kind of profit. They're sold for $26 a piece, by the way. I guess that's a knock. Hey, if you can get it. Kennedy said, Senator, I have no power over that organization. I'm not a part of it. I resigned from the board. Well, Sanders said that was just a few months ago. So talking about using it as a precious time to interrogate, if you will, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and using it to discuss onesie apparel. Okay. He did talk, and I thought this was an important point, and some are using it as a negative, but on his past drug struggles. He said, I was a heroin addict for 14 years. I have been 42 years in recovery. Primary care physicians should understand addiction care. That was brave, for lack of a better word. I know that word's thrown around too much, and maybe even so here, but it was important for him to make that statement. Senator Michael Bennett asked about several of Kennedy's claims, like I mentioned earlier. That was kind of the takeaways that both New York Post and CNN could agree on, the conspiracy theories that he had pushed in the past. What was, I thought, an important point that was mentioned, and we had a viewer bring this up earlier on, when asked about obesity, he said, when my uncle was president, when JFK was president, 3% of Americans were obese. Today, 74% of Americans are obese or overweight. Epidemics are not caused by genes. Something is poisoning the American people, and we know that the primary culprits are changing food supply. Think of those numbers. They really were staggering, and I thought that was one of the takeaways, but one of the shining lights about the confirmation hearing was that 3% of Americans were obese during the JFK administration. Now 74% of Americans are obese or overweight. He also talked about climate change. I believe climate change is existential. President Trump and I, from the beginning, from our first meeting, agreed to disagree on the issue. Okay. I don't know how that comes up in his position if he gets it. On artificial intelligence and medicine, he said the Cleveland Clinic has developed an AI nurse that has diagnostics as good as any doctor. I think that could concern some people. Your thoughts on AI being used in nursing, in the medical industry? Because what's interesting, some are saying that with the investment in AI, and we saw that some come from Trump already during his time in office, people investing in AI, that there could be a cause or a cure for cancer in all of it. But boy, a lot of people still questioning, and I don't blame them, the role of AI in all of our institutions. On Medicaid, he said Medicaid is not working for Americans, and specifically not working for the target population. The best doctor will not accept it. The best hospitals, and particularly Medicaid, was originally designed for a targeted population, the poorest Americans. It's now been dramatically expanded, and the irony of the expansion is that the poorest Americans are now being robbed. And then finally, you had the tangling with Senator Ron Wyden over the vaccines. Kennedy just saying, I said there are no vaccines that are safe and effective, and I was going to continue for every person, every medicine has people who are sensitive to them, including vaccines. He interrupted me at that point. That was in response to the podcast. But I thought that was an important difference, and I'm glad he got, well, they didn't really let him get that out. That was another kind of contentious back and forth. So he was grilled over conflicting vaccine, abortion, and COVID claims in the confirmation hearing. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. He said he is not anti-vaccine and remained unapologetic about asking by asking uncomfortable questions about polio and measles immunizations, which the top Democrats on the Senate Finance Committee referred to as settled science. He told senators, I worked for years to raise awareness about the mercury and toxic chemicals in fish, and nobody called me anti-fish. Good line from Kennedy. I believe that vaccines play a critical role in healthcare, and all my kids are vaccinated. Republicans on the panel rattled off issues they were eager to work with RFK Jr. on, should he be confirmed next month, especially the nominee's plan to reverse the grievous state of U.S. healthcare, and appeared ready to approve his nomination by the end of the hearing. And again, we quote that line. And by the way, I'd love to hear your opinion on the confirmation itself. A source close to the process told the New York Post he's got every Republican vote on finance, and that's big. They're saying that there is positive momentum. Now, again, that's most likely coming from a conservative Republican source. But if that's the case, if he's got every Republican vote on finance, that's a big step. But Democrats on the panel tried to hoist RFK Jr. on his own petard, reading his own words about the safety and efficiency of vaccines. We know that. But at the end of the day, it boils down to, will he get all the Republican vote? And that would be very interesting if he does, and make this kind of smoother sailing for RFK Jr. But your thoughts about the confirmation hearing itself, and will he or will he not be confirmed? So we'll talk a little bit more about this, but I see I'm running late, because what I want to get to next, not changing the topic from RFK Jr., not at all. I want to bring you some of the talking heads, some of the opinion pieces about what they had to say about the hearing and what they believe about RFK Jr., and of course we'll be reading your comments. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
What if there was a place where every kid got a chance to be great? There is a place. Milton Hershey School. You see, we're more than a school. We change lives. And you can be next.
From laminate and vinyl to tile and wood, Floor & Decor has more options for pros, homeowners, and anyone looking for the right look at the right price. Your next beautiful space is at Floor & Decor.
Danny. See me after class. Okay, so, Jennifer? Yes? Okay, let me know.
Danny, I just got this notice from your school. We need to talk. This is important. We need to talk.
Danny, wake up! Danny! Labs.
Danny! She's overdosing.
When no one else knows what to do, it's gotta be you. Carry naloxone. You could save a life.
Football's newest show breaks down all things NFL. GMFB Overtime.
Check out top highlights, player interviews, special guests, and everything in between. 5 days a week.
GMFB Overtime. It's football for everyone.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street Corning. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We got a lot of viewer comments. Let's get right to them. Ken writes in to one of your viewers' comments on a shortage of air traffic controllers, possibly being a contributing factor to the mid-air collision in D.C. And if you are just joining us, yesterday, about 9 p.m., tragedy struck. Military Black Hawk helicopter collided mid-air with American Airlines jet. Last reported that I saw, which was not that long ago, 19 bodies have been recovered. There's a search and rescue mission going on currently. Ken continues, I know the reason given for the shortage of air traffic controllers has been the problem of finding qualified people that want a high-stress job. Quite honestly, I don't think that is the case for people not wanting a $100,000 a year job. The shortage appeared during the Biden administration following the COVID shutdowns. I think that the Democrats had an epiphany at the end of the COVID shutdowns. Since air traffic has always been blamed as a huge contributor to climate change, Pete Buttigieg decided that if they don't fill the shortage air traffic controllers, there will be less flights scheduled and they will help save the environment with less pollution from jet engines. Interesting, Ken. Thank you very much. Hadn't thought of it that way. Thank you. Comment from Fred. He says, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. I suppose that it would backfire when the voting happens, but I would love to see RFK call out the senators for the huge campaign donations made to both sides of the aisle by the pharmaceutical industry. Senator Warren being concerned that Kennedy might someday make money from his position is laughable. She probably got a donation last night for her performance. Oh, I guarantee it. She's probably emailing and fundraising off of it. There's no doubt. I mean, she was the one that instantly started selling. Nevertheless, she persisted because, remember, she said something and was arguing, and I can't remember who it was at the time. Maybe Mitch McConnell, who said, nevertheless, she persisted. And they thought, well, that's something, that we could put on bumper stickers, shirts, onesies probably. So, yeah, she made money off of that back and forth. There's no doubt about it. But, boy, it would backfire. But I would agree, Fred. I would love to see RFK call out the senators for the huge campaign donations made to both sides by the pharmaceutical industry. That's something that maybe perhaps only Trump could get away with. When they would say, well, you didn't pay tax, or, they go after for some financial issue. She goes, yeah, I know. I know the system. So, yes, very much. That would be welcomed, but probably not going to help his chances. Comment from a different viewer. How much of obesity is caused by the fact that grocery stores are open 24 hours and you can get food food at gas stations any time of the day or night, and it's not quality food? And of course, you've got fast food restaurants. So obviously, something to be said there, and not the healthiest food at many of those locations. So thank you for those comments. Got a few others that we'll read later on. But yeah, that shocking number that during JFK's presidency, 3% of Americans were obese. Today, 74% are either obese and overweight. And you can argue, are the BMI measures that they use, are they the best measures and all that? Either way, you've got to admit that even if it's not 74%, let's say it's 60%. Staggering number. All right, now, don't get mad at me. I'm just going to read you both sides of what we're hearing about RFK Jr., but the most important side I want to hear is from you. Isaac Shore, who I typically like Isaac Shore at the New York Post, called RFK Jr. a charlatan. I always have trouble with that. Lying his way through Senate hearings. The operative name in Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is Kennedy, Isaac says. At his confirmation hearing on Wednesday, President Trump's nominee to run the Department of Health and Human Services fielded countless questions about the countless views he's articulated and actions he's taken that make him uniquely unsuited for his position. And as you might expect of any Kennedy, his answers were full of obfuscations, half-truths, and outright lies. And I'm not going to go through the ones, to each individual one. We don't have time for that. I don't want to fall into the trap of just quoting from the hearing. You watched it. That's why I want to hear your opinion on it. Yeah, I can. Wow. Okay. Went through a lot of these. Okay. But making the key point that it's the kind of the Kennedy tradition. You look at Ted Kennedy and others. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is many things that his famous family resents. A kook, an embarrassment, and worst of all, in league with the Republican Party. Yeah, that's really where they drew the line, the Kennedy family. But his most ignoble trait, the one on full display on Wednesday, is one that he shares with the rest of his clan. He's a power-hungry charlatan, willing to say anything to take the next step up the ladder. Your thoughts on that? Again, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just relaying both sides on this. Miranda Devine, also from the Post, shows the hearings reveal the border crisis under the Biden administration is why our health care has faltered. Very interesting. During the contentious confirmation hearing, Kennedy revealed that Medicaid costs blew out by a staggering 60% during Joe Biden's presidency. Biden's border invasion is what happened over the past 4 years. This is a very good point by Devine. It stands to reason that if you have an extra 10 to 20 million new potential low-income patients, none of whom has contributed a penny in net taxes, you will get a blowout in Medicaid and Medicare costs. This is the dirty little secret that the Biden administration and their minions in the, quote, fact-checking business, the media, have been busy denying. But talk to doctors who work near the border, and they will tell you illegal aliens get unlimited taxpayer-funded health care, and many have serious health problems. She goes through and talks about some examples of this, but I thought that was a big takeaway from yesterday's hearing, and I thought worth commenting on. America is the most generous country in the world, but it's no good to anyone if, as Kennedy warns, the whole ship sinks. The Washington Post claims that RFK Jr. has, quote, poor sense of ethics and is not qualified. Going back to Ken's point, and a point we've made in the past, when you have people like Elizabeth Warren lecturing on ethics, when we know that she took a job away, from how many potential candidates that could have had that job with an actual a minority background, when she claimed Native American descent that was not there, getting that job at Harvard. So for her to lecture RFK Jr. about ethics is kind of rich. But again, as that viewer said, she fundraises off of it. She'll make a lot of money off of it because who's reporting on that lie in her background? Just like with Richard Blumenthal. Who's reporting on that with Senator Blumenthal that he lied about his service in Vietnam? Nobody. Yeah, you may hear it on Fox. You may hear it at conservative outlets. But you're not hearing it in an article that talks about, none of those articles I read from CNN, not even the New York Post, mentioned her background and lying about her non-existent Native American inheritance. And remember what the number was? I can't remember what it was. It was almost a lower number than the kind of national average when it comes to how much Native American that she had in her background is amazing. But anyway, I don't want to belabor that point. But the Washington Post claims RFK Jr. has poor sense of ethics and is not qualified. His poor sense of ethics makes him unfit to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. The outlet released a scathing opinion piece on President Donald Trump's pick. More reasons to oppose RFK Jr.'s nomination is how the article is titled, followed by the subheadline, his poor sense of ethics makes him unfit to lead the Department of Health and Human Services, claiming that Kennedy, who has popularized the Make America Healthy Again tagline, is not qualified for many reasons. His years-long unscientific campaign against essential vaccines and his conflict of interests. According to the Post, Kennedy's conflict is that he will retain his financial stake in a lawsuit filed by the law firm Wisner Baum, where he formerly served as a consultant, against Gardasil vaccine manufacturer Merck. The HHS hopeful made the disclosure last week in his filings with the Office of Government Ethics. However, Kennedy will only be paid if his ex-firm wins, and only for cases that aren't against the U.S. or in which the U.S. isn't a party and doesn't have a direct or substantial interest, according to the filings. So, again, the Washington Post claiming that RFK Jr. has poor sense of ethics and is not qualified. So your thoughts on the hearing? Fetterman, I'm running late. Fetterman says that the nomination is in trouble after the rocky hearing. Did you think the hearing was rocky? I mean, it was contentious. I don't know. I guess it depends on what your definition of rocky is. Fetterman, Senator John Fetterman from our friends in Pennsylvania, who had thought to be open for voting RFK Jr. Now says that his Rocky quote. I don't think it went well for him today. I don't think that was a good one. Oof. Fetterman said that after the bruising hearing that he thinks Kennedy's nomination may be moot. It's moot. I'm not really sure how much support is going to emerge after that. Even though he mentioned that Fetterman had met with Kennedy twice, I think we can all agree that that was a really difficult performance. I'm not sure he'll even make it out of the committee. Did you feel it went that bad? Now, again, they're saying that in finance that all Republicans, anonymous sources saying they are for him. And if that's the case, maybe it's not as rocky as to be believed. Do you believe that it's a moot point now, that it's over, and he may not even get out of committee because it went that bad? I'd like to hear from you on that. But we got to take a break. Stay with us. Then we're going to move on and talk about some other confirmation hearings and some other updates on the Trump administration. I see a lot of great comments coming in. Thank you. We'll be right back. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
The Fox Sports app isn't just any sports app. It's your sports app.
For the touchdown!
Yeah, yours. Your teams. Your highlights. Your scores. Your stories. Just choose your favorites to get more of what you want.
To the end zone!
And of course, stream your teams live. The best part is free with your pay TV subscription. Grab your Fox Sports app today.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly Speaking, live, 2 hours long, starting at 6 a.m. on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is history making.
Fox website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
We are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and that is our beautiful roof cam showing us our view of Market Street, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. I apologize. I didn't get a chance to read all of your comments ahead of time, so I will get to them after the next segment, which is coming out very soon because I'm running so late. So please be patient, but I look forward to reading all the comments because there were so many. I did get one here, the shortest one. Give RFK Jr. a chance. He will be under Trump's rule of, if he fails, he will be fired. And I would agree with that. If he doesn't do a good job, he's out. I don't know, though, if I'm being honest with you, I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't think that the hearing yesterday went as bad as John Fetterman signaled, but I do think there are concerns amongst Democrats. Obviously, that was crystal clear yesterday. But I think there could be some concerns with Republicans on the issue of abortion. Now, continuing though, and there is part 2 of the hearings today, there's sparks expected to fly today as well, because Kash Patel's Senate confirmation hearing to lead the FBI is today. Patel, a former public defender, Department of Justice official, and longtime Trump ally, will join the Senate committee at 9:30 this morning, when lawmakers are anticipated to grill the nominee on plans detailed in his 2023 book to overhaul the FBI, his crusade against the deep state, and his resume. as Democrats argue the nominee lacks the qualifications for the role. Do you feel bad for the senator's staff who have to read Patel's book from 2003 so that their boss has talking points to use against Patel? How many people, they'll start quoting his book or saying, I read this. How many do you think actually read the book? You've got to speculate that there was some poor, lowly staff member that drew the short straw. Not that Patel's book's bad. I'm just saying, not always in the mood to read a long book, especially if you work for a Democrat senator. It's probably not your cup of tea. But anyway, Marsha Blackburn said they are very fearful of Kash Patel because Kash Patel knows what Adam Schiff and some of the others did with Russia collusion. And they know that he knows the dirt on them, if you will. And I think they're fearful of what he's going to do and what he's going to reveal to the general public. Very interesting. Now, Patel is a New York native, worked as a public defender in Florida's Miami-Dade after earning his law degree in 2005 from Pace University. So that hearing will be another one to watch today. Will you be watching the Kennedy hearing or the Patel hearing? Will you be watching both? I hope that you'll weigh in on it. Patel has said that he could release both the Jeffrey Epstein client list and the Sean Diddy Combs party attendee list, which could expose a lot of people who were allegedly involved in sex and human trafficking crimes. Senate Democrats received an anonymous whistleblower report that was publicly reported Monday, alleging Patel violated protocol during a hostage rescue mission. We mentioned that on the program yesterday. Anonymous source, that happened so much during Trump's first term that it's not, I believe, not to be believed. I think that's a low down, dirty tactic. If you have a whistleblower, if you have an actual source, that's one thing. If you have an anonymous source, that's where I have a little bit of a problem. If we could quickly, I got to take a break here, and I'm going to read your comments, I promise. But we were talking about the great job that the new press secretary did. By the way, did you see 7,000 applicants have already applied for the new media seat in the press briefing room? Now, that's the new media, the podcasters and like that, really kind of revolutionizing the briefings, where it's a seat for an independent journalist, podcaster, social media influencer, content creator, etc. They have already received over 7,000 applications. Now, the reason I mention this is Carolyn Levitt. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I always read it, and I don't know if I've heard it. I thought she did a very good job in her first press briefing. She's the youngest press person in history. Did you see how low? I guess this is kind of, again, showing you different standards and different rules. Because Joy Behar on The View, if she were a Republican and said what she said, it would be the end of that Republican's career. But because she's a Democrat, very much anti-Trumper, she said that the press secretary was hired because she's a 10, meaning based on her looks. Joy Behar said that Carolyn Levitt got her job at as White House press secretary because President Donald Trump thinks she was a 10. Whoopi Goldberg said, I would like her to do a little homework because she said something yesterday that really, we'll say, made her mad. And that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here. Let me explain something. Let me explain something to you. Because without that wokeness, you might not have that job because women were not invited to that table. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this. And that's when Joy Behar said she's been probably put in there because according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is. So after Whoopi Goldberg gets done talking about the great strides that women have made in business and in this case in the White House, after talking about those great strides and how women weren't originally allowed at the table, but now they are, and something you could be proud of, Joy Behar decides to follow that up with saying, she got it for her looks. Think of the different standard. Imagine if that conversation, well, it's very much like to tie that in, and don't ask me how I'm going to tie these two stories together with the press secretary and Joy Behar commenting on her looks. But in the media, you would not get away with that if you were a Republican, and rightfully so. They would go after you. But it's okay because Joy Behar is pushing the right narrative, right? The same goes with a CNN guest. Democrat strategist Jenna Arnold warned that illegal immigrants are needed in America for tasks such as, quote, picking strawberries. That essentially saying women won't have berries for their smoothies if illegal immigrants are deported. Quote, if you are trying to actively hire illegal immigrants, if you think that's the best, if you're trying to game the system, if you're trying to help someone break the immigration law, I think if we're going to have a true crackdown on illegal immigration in this country, it has to involve everybody who's participating in it. That's Scott Jennings from CNN. He's the conservative. He added that employers and anyone else who is part of this pipeline, I think they ought to be put on notice. And you got to play by the rules. Everybody has to play by the rules. Fair. Scott Jennings has been doing a good job lately. I don't want to hear that they're doing work that no one else will do. Talk to guys in the building trades, plumbers, contractors. That's when Democrat strategist Jenna Arnold injected picking strawberries. Who was it? Wasn't it? Well, no, let me continue. I can't wait. This is what she said. I can't wait until American women can't get blueberries for their smoothies. I cannot wait until there's a full crackdown on all small businesses, as if that's going to be the solution to the immigration problem. It is just going to put immigration-related issues further into the darker corners. We're not going to see them. It's just going to become even harder to solve the problem. It doesn't make sense to punish individuals and people when there's a broken system. Wasn't it not that long ago? Was it John McCain's daughter, which her name is escaping right now? I know it's McCain. I can't think of what her first name is for some reason. Meghan McCain, right? Was she had to come out and apologize because she said something somewhat similar to this? Or was it Kelly Osbourne or Sharon Osbourne? It was somebody. But having to apologize for that same essential statement, and now that is being thought as a brilliant talking point from Democrat strategist on CNN. Anyway, I want to get to your comments, so let me take a break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us.
Today we are talking about Medicare Part C, commonly called Medicare Advantage. If you're losing benefits for any reason or new to Medicare, you can call now because you may be eligible for plans in your zip code with additional benefits or cost savings you may not be receiving now or that may have previously not been available to you. Different Part C plans are available in different parts of the country, so don't wait. Call the number on your screen now. You should call now even if you've called before. We will check to see if there is a Part C plan available in your area with additional benefits and potential cost savings. Call to speak with a licensed insurance agent and find out if you are eligible for a special enrollment period. You don't get Medicare Part C benefits automatically, so call now for your free 2025 no-obligation Medicare benefits review.
Just call 800-779-6410. 800-779-6410.
Today we are talking about Medicare Part C, commonly called Medicare Advantage. If you're losing benefits for any reason or new to Medicare, you can call now because you may be eligible for plans in your zip code with additional benefits or cost savings you may not be receiving now or that may have previously not been available to you. Different Part C plans are available in different parts of the country, so don't wait. Call the number on your screen now. You should call now even if you've called before. We will check to see if there is a Part C plan available in your area with additional benefits and potential cost savings. Call to speak with a licensed insurance agent and find out if you are eligible for a special enrollment period. You don't get Medicare Part C benefits automatically, so call now for your free 2025 no-obligation Medicare benefits review.
Just call 800-779-6410. 800-779-6410.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. It is just now being reported that at least 30 bodies have been recovered after the American Airlines flight collided with a military helicopter, so that is an update on that breaking story. And of course, our thoughts and prayers to all of those affected. We've been talking about it this morning. It is a fluid story. We'll try to bring you the information as it unfolds. Okay, let's go to some comments from viewers. Good morning, Frank. Hey, good morning. I am for one, definitely not a fan of AI. And while I'm sure there are benefits, there are far greater risks with AI. And if we aren't on top of the potential risks, I think this could be extremely problematic. And in the wrong hands, who knows? This is an area that I believe Elon has recognized in the very beginning before he was considered by President Trump. And one of the reasons I think he could be a big asset to have on board. That's a good point. I agree with, I think he recognizes the very real trouble that can come from AI, and I understand your point and your concern. Comment from a different viewer. I'm sorry about the plane disaster. It's a tragedy. I pray when it shakes out, the facts don't reveal an inexperienced, unqualified hire. Yeah, I think there's, well, it's a breaking story. It's unfolding, so we're not going to speculate on any of that at this moment. Comment from a different viewer. Think about this. The rise in obesity, possibly caused by the increased number of drive-through restaurants today. Maybe RFK Jr. should look into the ingredients in the prepared foods. Also, Americans do not prepare their meals at home like they did in the 60s. Many people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s don't cook. What happened to teaching how to cook in schools? Thank you. What a great point. You know, maybe that could be, you can't make deals with Hochul and the Democrat-controlled Albany. I mean, they've got a single-party rule. But maybe that can be the trade-off. Hey, if we're going to give all kids free meal, whether they financially need it or not, can we maybe bring back home ec? Could we maybe bring back, call it something else if that's not a popular name anymore, but could we bring back teaching young people how to cook so they can prepare their meals in the future? I mean, I know it doesn't make up for how much the free lunches are going to cost, free breakfast and lunches. But yeah, I think you raised such a good point. I wish I had it in school, and I wish even in college I have that opportunity to learn. Because where do you go to learn? I know there are some local outlets that do have kind of training classes, but it's not the same. If they took it in school, much like in the old days, home ec, I think we'd be much better off. So I appreciate your point, and I agree wholeheartedly. Comment from Ken. I think that much of the problem with regulations of our food and pharmaceuticals is driven by money and kickbacks from corporations to those involved in the regulatory process. I think Kennedy has been somewhat radical on health issues in the past and is watering down what he is saying to get more in line with what the average American believes. That said, I also believe he would be a good candidate to get more scrutiny on our food and pharmaceutical industries and to make corrections where needed. To use an analogy, when your car is out of control on a slippery road, you have to radically correct the skid in a fashion that may seem counterintuitive to get back on a straight course. Yes, thank you, Ken. That's an interesting take on Kennedy, because I think there are concerns and on both sides, Democrat and Republican. Everybody has some type of concern with Kennedy. Maybe some are very concerned. Some are just saying, well, I wish he didn't say this in the past, or I wish he didn't do this, or I don't agree with this. But that's why I think this is going to be a very interesting hearing today. And I'm not going to bet on it. I don't know where it goes. I do think, in my opinion, it's a tough sell for him to get the nomination. Not because I disagree, anything like that. I'm not saying it from a biased manner that I'm for him or against him. Not at all. I'm just saying the writing on the wall to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, in the future, if Pete Hegseth needed Vance to come in for the tie, I think, I'm not going to use the media's term of controversial, I just think it's tougher for Kennedy to get in there. But then again, you could say, well, Kennedy was a Democrat. Maybe there'll be some Democrats that support him. I doubt that. But this one just seems difficult. Comment from a different viewer. Hey, this is nice. If it wasn't for Frankly Speaking, we would hear very little about our local representatives that we elect to be our voice in Albany. Even with our local news stations, with back-to-back editions, there's rarely a mention of what is going on in Albany. We actually hear more about what is happening in Harrisburg. So thank you for your effort and that you put into keeping us informed. Well, thank you. And that is a real comment from a viewer, but I am going to hijack it to shamelessly self-promote. Tomorrow on the program, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano will tell us exactly what is going on in Albany and be our voice in Albany. So we have Assemblyman Phil Palmisano on the program tomorrow. It's Fridays with Phil. Look forward to talking with him a lot about the EV bus mandates and, of course, the state of affairs in Albany. Also, I'm going to ask him about that. I'm going to throw him for a loop. I don't know if he knows I'm going to bring that up, but that Hochul wants $13.5 million of your money to implement a cell phone ban in schools. Just tell the kids they can't do it and then have some discipline. Yeah, here comes the Corning whistle. We got to take a break. This show's moving fast this morning. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Are you ready for winter in New York State? Ready for thrills like this? Discoveries like this? Views like this? Are you ready to make memories? Plan the perfect trip or have an impromptu getaway. It's time to explore everything that makes New York easy to love. Discover more at iloveny.com.
It's a new year, and for millions of New Yorkers, that means more money in your pocket. For the second year in a row, the minimum wage in New York State has gone up. Both this year and next, the minimum wage is increasing 50 cents per hour. That means an additional $2,000 to spend on all the things you and your family need. Then, in 2027, the minimum wage will be tied to inflation, which means increases will match costs. New York's new minimum wage, putting money directly into the pockets of New Yorkers who need it most.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. I know a press conference is going to begin shortly on the military Black Hawk helicopter colliding mid-air with the American Airlines jet. It is now being reported at the New York Post that 30 bodies have been recovered after that collision. That's the story. That's the news that we have on that breaking story as of now. We'll try to keep you updated in the last few moments that we have on the program. A couple comments from viewers. The Corning whistle just went off. That means it's time for free breakfast. Good point. We were talking this morning about the free school breakfasts and lunches. That became a kind of a different talking point than expected, but a fun one. Comment from a different viewer. Frank, I have to wonder, with all the automation in the food industry, how many crops are actually handpicked? And we are talking about illegal, undocumented aliens who broke the law to be here. I'm sure the work visas will continue to those who follow the rules. I agree that I do believe they will follow. And that was a discussion. Who was it? Oh, yeah. Stephen Miller was telling Jake Tapper, and Jake Tapper didn't want to hear it, but he talked about the real issue with welfare and the cost of welfare for illegal immigrants in this country, and he was talking about that, and Jake Tapper kind of pushed back, but he said the number of people working at these farms was such a low percent. I wish I had it in front of me. It was that's what they point to because it sounds like such a good talking point, just like that person I mentioned from CNN thought it was a good talking point. Wait till women can't get their strawberries in their smoothies anymore, which just seems very inappropriate to me. But that is such that number is not look at all the issue in New York City. They're not farming, right? So that's something that is a talking point. That's all it is, because they think it tugs at the heartstrings. Trump will send up to 30,000 illegal immigrants to Guantanamo Bay. It's a tough place to get out of, is his exact quote. That was during the signing of the Laken-Riley Act. Most people don't even know that we have 30,000 beds in Guantanamo to detain the worst criminal illegal aliens threatening the American people. He added that some of them are so bad we don't even trust the countries to hold them because we don't want them to come back. So we're going to send them out to Guantanamo. This will double our capacity immediately, and it's a tough place to get out of. The memorandum requires the Defense Department and DHS to take all appropriate actions to expand facilities to full capacity to provide additional detention space for high-priority criminal aliens unlawfully present in the United States. Okay, only 15 terror suspects remain there this year in the 30,000-bed Guantanamo Bay. J.D. Vance claimed yesterday that the Biden administration was aware of the names and addresses of violent criminals in this country, but took no action, meaning the illegal aliens that are here, that they have been cracking down on. I saw the number. They have been going great guns and tracking these people down. This is what Vance said to Sean Hannity yesterday. Again, Vice President J.D. Vance. What is shocking to me is that many of these violent criminals, we know their addresses, we know their names. We just needed to send somebody to go to their house and get them the heck out of our country. Using a little poetic license there. He fumed that federal officials haven't done anything until about 8 days ago when Donald Trump became the president of the United States to apprehend known gang leaders and other violent offenders. Those gang leaders, those violent offenders in our communities, their addresses were known. They were known to be there. And the federal government did nothing until Trump was sworn into office. And many of them came here during Biden's administration as well. It really should shock the conscience of the American people, the vice president said. He noted that on the campaign trail, critics of Trump's pledge to deport criminal migrants often noted that one major hurdle would be that we don't know where they are. Well, it turns out we actually do know where a lot of them are. We just haven't had immigration enforcement, and that is what's changed. He touted the crackdown and Trump's flurry of executive actions as signs that the new administration has accomplished, quote, more in 8 days than the entire Biden administration accomplished in 4 years. And of course, the things that we're accomplishing are actually good things. Then he said, why wasn't that happening a couple years ago, this crackdown? Because they weren't empowered to do their job, meaning Border Patrol agents. The border has become so lawless that we're actually engaging in military-style engagements just to regain control of our southern border. Okay, let's take our last break and wrap things up. Get your last-minute comments in. Before we head out the door, we're going to go through a few stories of breakneck speed here at the end of the program, so stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
From laminate and vinyl to tile and wood, Floor & Decor has more options for pros, homeowners, and anyone looking for the right look at the right price. Your next beautiful space is at Floor & Decor.
Heather and I had an argument just like any other couple. I was lost and lonely. I had snapped, I had a gun, and I was going to take my own life. Heather helped me realize that there was still life to live. For the better of myself, my family, my weapon is now safely put away.
My son, Ricky, took his life by the use of a firearm. It broke me in ways that I never knew that I could be broken. And I contemplated suicide. Afterwards, we found out his girlfriend, she was pregnant. If that was my grandson, I was gonna have to be here for him. I still own my firearm. I keep it in a safe because I want to keep my grandson and myself safe.
A moment of crisis can happen to anyone.
Store your gun securely, locked, unloaded, and away from ammo.
It's all types to play Family Feud, the blunt mama.
If you knew Steve Harvey was at your door, you'd answer it wearing what?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Weeknights at 7 and 7:30.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Let's go through some viewer comments before we wrap up today's edition. Biden wanted to close Guantanamo Bay, and now it's clear why. Yes, He saw the writing on the wall. A comment from a different viewer, though in the similar vein. Joe really dropped the ball leaving those 30,000 beds behind at Guantanamo. He should have had buy a section of border wall and get a free bed program. Good point. I'm surprised he didn't. Finally, Frank, I totally agree with the last viewer's comment about keeping us informed on our local candidates. Oh, thank you. That's very nice of you to say. It's helpful when interviewed, as you have done, and it isn't easy to find out what they stand for anymore. I find it interesting how much work I have to do to dig in and try to figure it out. Those who just listen to what they say are oftentimes misled, so it's important to do the homework. A reminder to viewers, just because an R or a D appears before their name, sometimes you have to dig a little deeper to reveal what they think. I couldn't agree more. That's why we made it a goal, just to find the basic information on, especially the localist of candidates, is very, very difficult. Other than perhaps, depending on how local we're talking, there may be a Facebook page, there may be a website, but more times than not even a website when you talk about town council and things like that. So that's why we've made it a goal here on Frankly Speaking to have as many of the candidates on as possible. And this year is going to be especially busy because November is a local election year where we've got legislators, we've got town supervisors, those type of positions up. So I want to interview as many as possible. Please feel free to reach out if you're running for office. I do hope that you're thinking about running for office. And if you are, remember that the petition process is coming up at the end of February. So you have to make that decision very soon. And then you've got to start preparing if you are involved in a primary, for instance. That will be in the beginning of the summer. And then, of course, you've got the general election in November. I would love to hear from you if you are going to run and have you on the program. Please reach out at any time. And if you're thinking about running and you have any questions, contact me at that number on the bottom of your screen, and I will get you in contact with a person on both sides. I can get you in contact with either the Democrat or the Republican, and you can start that process. And don't forget, coming up on February 1st, they're having that meeting at Steuben County to go through the petition process. So that'll be a step in the right direction. So please reach out to me if you have any questions. Let's go through a couple quick things. Oh, the DOJ has moved to throw out the cases against Mar-a-Lago's valet and property manager that was tied to the Trump classified document prosecution. You may have missed this breaking story yesterday because there were so many breaking stories. Federal prosecutors moved to voluntarily dismiss the case against two of President Trump's former co-defendants in the Mar-a-Lago documents case. Without an explanation, the Justice Department asked an appeals court to end its challenge against a prior decision to throw out its prosecution of, again, the valet and the property manager. Meta. Here's a comment from a viewer. It's hard to figure out what a candidate thinks. We still don't know what Harris stood for. That is a good point. Meta, Facebook, had to pay $25 million to Trump to settle the 2021 lawsuit. The president had sued social media company after his accounts were suspended following the January 6th riot. Now, Elizabeth Warren says it looks like a bribe and a signal to every company that corruption is the name of the game. After Meta pays to play, what does Mark Zuckerberg expect as a return for his investment? Hey, paying for righting the wrong. The Pentagon did remove, this is official now, remove General Milley's security detail and revoked his clearance. It was said yesterday on the program that Pete Hegseth had mentioned that he was going to do that. It is now official. And, Democrats' unfavorability rating has reached a new 16-year high as the party keeps licking its wounds following the disaster, though, as we mentioned numerous times, it does not seem like they've learned their lesson. So they now hold an unfavorability rating 57%. Have a great day, everyone. This has been Frankly Speaking. Join us tomorrow, Fridays with Phil, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Looking forward to it already. Have a great day.
Lease a brand new 2024 Subaru Crosstrek Premium all-wheel drive featuring power moonroof and heated seats for only $359 a month for 36 months. Make Carbine simple. Drive your deal at Simmons Rockwell Subaru in Big Flats.